Ethan Hayes was convinced he had just endured the worst day imaginable. It's not every day your wife of 23 years casually announces her plans to start seeing other men, beginning tonight. Sitting silently at the kitchen table, Ethan clutched a glass of monkey-shoulder scotch. For 10 long minutes, he didn't even sip the amber liquid. Instead, he sat motionless, staring ahead as though the world had ceased to exist, while a deep ache clawed at his chest. He understood, with bitter clarity, that no amount of Alka-Seltzer could soothe the knot twisting in his stomach. Stories of men whose wives declared their intentions to date others had always struck him as urban myths, tall tales whispered in jest. But now, faced with the cold reality of his own wife's declaration, Ethan couldn't comprehend how any woman could expect her loyal husband to accept such a betrayal. The selfishness, the cruelty, it defied reason. And yet, just that morning, things had been normal. It was a typical Monday, marked by a pleasant day at work that ended with Ethan leaving the office in high spirits. He whistled a tune as he entered the house, his good mood still intact. Spotting his wife, Samantha, seated at the kitchen table with a glass of red wine and his favorite whiskey, he greeted her warmly. Taking his usual spot, he set down his briefcase, poured himself a generous drink, and leaned back in his chair. "What's on your mind, Samantha?" he asked, catching the sly smile on her lips. Samantha met his gaze with unsettling composure. Her grin held an edge that made his stomach tighten. "Do you think I've been a good wife and mother all these years, Ethan?" she asked, her tone unervingly calm. Ethan frowned, his mind churning. She was well aware of his habit of overthinking, and he could feel her watching as he carefully considered his answer. "Yes," he replied after a moment. "I'd say you have. And do you think I deserve a little recognition for that?" she pressed, her voice devoid of emotion. Ethan hesitated, unsure where the conversation was headed. "Do you think I should expect a reward for being a good husband and father?" he countered irritably. "Why are you even asking me this, Samantha?" "Because tonight," she said, her voice as tranquil as a still pond, "I'm going out on a date with another man." Ethan froze. The words hit him like a slap, leaving him disoriented. His mind went blank, as if someone had wiped the slate clean, and he struggled to process what he just heard. Samantha tilted her head slightly, studying his reaction with a look that made him feel like a naive child. "Yes, Ethan," she confirmed, her tone almost patronizing. "Another man. It's been 24 years since we became exclusive, and in all that time, I haven't dated anyone else. I've been a faithful wife and a dedicated mother, but now I think I deserve a night to experience something different. Not love, just pleasure. I'm 47, and I won't be attractive forever. I want to explore while I can, while I still have options." Ethan's jaw dropped in disbelief. He had heard her correctly, but surely, she couldn't mean it. The unspoken question must have shown on his face because Samantha gave a small, knowing nod. "Damn," he muttered under his breath as she stood and ascended the stairs. Moments later, she returned, dressed to kill. The little black dress clung to her figure, its daring cutouts revealing she wasn't wearing a bra. The hem barely reached mid-thigh, and her subtle makeup enhanced her natural beauty. Her long blonde hair, tied in a sleek ponytail, added to her allure. She looked stunning, and Ethan felt a mix of anger and helplessness. "You're not doing this, Samantha," he declared, rising to his feet. "I don't know what's gotten into you, but this stops here. You can't go on a date with another man while you're still my wife." Samantha's bright smile twisted into something bitter. "You won't ruin my night, Ethan," she said with a sneer. "You can act tough, but deep down, you know you won't divorce me over this. Where else will you find someone like me? And don't forget, our kids will blame you if this marriage falls apart. Toughen up, Ethan. Let me have my fun, and then it'll be you and me again, growing old together. You love me too much to walk away, and we both know it." The sound of a car horn outside punctuated her words. She grabbed a small bag and moved toward Ethan, leaning in to kiss him goodbye. He recoiled, his body jerking back as though her touch had burned him. For a fleeting moment, Samantha looked hurt. Then her expression hardened, her features carved into a mask of indifference. "I'll be back, maybe," she said coldly, and with that, she walked out the door without a backward glance. Ethan stood frozen, watching her leave, his heart sinking. Could this truly be the end of their 23-year marriage? It certainly felt that way. Samantha had always been blessed with stunning looks, a gift she had leveraged to her advantage since adolescence. Research supports the idea that physical beauty often grants people privileges, better opportunities, more attention, even higher grades. For Samantha, these advantages had only grown as she matured. By the time she turned 13, she had fully developed, and she quickly realized the power her appearance gave her. A flutter of her eyelashes, a coy smile. It was all it took to win over most boys. And for those who were harder to impress, she simply leaned into her assets a little more. Ethan had been no exception. When his family moved to the city just before he started 8th grade, he met Samantha on his first day of school. She captivated him instantly. A popular athlete with a wide circle of friends, Ethan eventually worked up the courage to ask her out in high school. To his delight, she said yes. Ethan and Samantha began dating during their early high school years and remained a couple until the first few weeks of their junior year. That was when Samantha broke things off with him to pursue Dylan Carter Jr., a star player on the school's football team. At the time, Ethan stood just 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed a modest 110 pounds, while Carter towered at 6 feet 2 inches and boasted an athletic 190-pound frame. Although deeply hurt, Ethan couldn't deny the reality of the situation. Samantha's beauty placed her in a league of her own, far beyond the reach of most boys in their school. Her newfound relationship with a football player elevated her social standing, granting her access to the exclusive circle of popular students. Meanwhile, Ethan faded into the background, just another face in the crowded hallways. Though he dated a few girls and maintained a small circle of friends, his life didn't intersect with Samantha's during those years. On the rare occasions they passed each other, she treated him like a complete stranger, which initially infuriated him. Over time, however, he grew numb to it. By senior year, Ethan had grown 2 inches taller and added 40 pounds to his frame. He had become a fit and good-looking young man, but even then, he couldn't hold a candle to Samantha's unmatched allure. At prom, he attended with a pretty, though unremarkable, girlfriend, and the two shared an intimate night, losing their innocence together. That same evening, Samantha was crowned prom queen, with her date taking the title of prom king. They celebrated with their own romantic encounter, though Samantha's experiences had long since left her innocence behind. She had a reputation for using her charm and physical appeal to her advantage, and physical intimacy was often part of her strategy with the boys fortunate enough to date her. After high school, Ethan pursued accounting at Michigan State University. Over his 4 years there, he dated casually but never formed any serious relationships. Samantha, on the other hand, attended Central Michigan University to study marketing. During her college years, she dated multiple men and didn't shy away from using her feminine wiles to get what she wanted, even leveraging an affair with a marketing professor to turn a B into an A. Samantha had become a master of the game, honing her skills at manipulation and seduction. By sheer coincidence, both of them ended up in Grand Rapids after graduating. About a year later, Ethan found himself at a popular bar with some coworkers on a Friday night when Samantha walked in, accompanied by 2 friends. The moment she entered, heads turned, captivated by the striking woman in a short green dress with a plunging neckline. Samantha barely acknowledged the attention, so accustomed was she to being the center of every room. "Who's that goddess?" Jake Morgan exclaimed, his eyes glued to her. Without thinking, Ethan answered, "That, ladies and gentlemen, is Samantha Soames, goddess, former prom queen, and my middle school sweetheart." The entire table went silent, heads whipping toward him in surprise. "Wait, you know her?" one of them asked, incredulous. Ethan sighed, clearly uncomfortable with the sudden attention. "Yeah, we were close back when we were 14. But once high school started, I might as well have been invisible to her. She ignored me for 4 years. Got any juicy stories from back then?" one of the women teased, eliciting laughter from the group. Their joking caught Samantha's attention, and for a brief moment, she thought she recognized one of the men at the table. Though uncertain, her curiosity was piqued. She and her friends sat at a nearby table, positioning her directly across from the vaguely familiar man. "Dude, just go say hi," Morgan urged, noticing Ethan's subtle glances. "She treated me like a nobody for years," Ethan muttered under his breath. Why would she suddenly care now? Samantha continued to study him as she enjoyed her meal. Finally, recognition dawned, and with a snap of her fingers, she pointed directly at him. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," one of her friends warned. "Pointing at someone in public can backfire." Samantha ignored the comment, standing abruptly. "Be right back," she declared. "I need to say hello to an old friend." Practically leaping from her chair, she strode confidently toward Ethan's table. "Ethan, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with enthusiasm. Ethan rolled his eyes at his coworkers before turning to face her with a forced smile. "Samantha, nice to see you too," he replied, his tone flat and emotionless. Rising from his seat, he was caught off guard when she leaned in, kissed him lightly on the lips, and rested her hands on his shoulders. The group at the table gawked in disbelief. Ethan himself was stunned, but Samantha seemed completely at ease. She smiled, a playful glint in her eye, and said, "Come on, let me introduce you to my friends." Taking his hand, she led him to her table, where he spent the rest of the evening chatting with Samantha and her companions. Before the night ended, she grabbed his phone, added her number, and made sure to save hers in return. Samantha was intrigued by Ethan's demeanor. Unlike most men, he seemed indifferent to her charms, which only made her more determined. Despite her attempts to engage him, he divided his attention equally between her and her friends. Even when she kissed him again, he remained stoic. On Monday morning, his coworkers grilled him about the interaction, their curiosity insatiable. When Ethan admitted he'd only stayed for an hour before leaving, they were floored. "She's amazing, but she's way out of my league," he grumbled. "I'm not signing up for that kind of drama." 2 days later, however, drama found him anyway. As he left work, he spotted Samantha waiting near his car. Dressed in an outfit that fit just a little too snug, she exuded an allure that was impossible to ignore. Ethan sighed heavily, muttering to himself as he reluctantly approached her. "Why didn't you call, Ethan?" Samantha asked softly as she stood by his car, her voice carrying a mix of teasing and reproach. Ethan tried to stay composed, but his eyes betrayed him as they wandered over her figure. Her low-cut top was unbuttoned, just enough to reveal her cleavage, and her short skirt clung dangerously high on her thighs. Every part of her appearance seemed meticulously designed to disarm him. "Damn," he muttered under his breath as Samantha stepped closer, wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling him into a kiss. Ethan froze for a moment, but his resolve quickly melted. His hands instinctively slid to her waist, one grazing her bare skin as her dress rode up. Her tongue slipped into his mouth, assertive and confident, while he dropped his briefcase to the ground and gave in completely. They stayed locked in the kiss for what felt like an eternity before finally breaking apart. Samantha stepped back with a sly smile, smoothing her dress with ease as if the moment had been nothing unusual. Several of Ethan's coworkers, who had been discreetly watching, quickly ducked into their cars and drove away, clearly unsure how to react. Ethan watched them go, his mind swirling with confusion and desire. That evening, they went to a quiet restaurant on the edge of the city. The atmosphere was intimate, with dim lighting and soft music, but Ethan could hardly focus. Samantha, for her part, frequently tugged at her dress, trying to keep it in place, which drew amused glances from both Ethan and the young waitress serving them. Despite his caution and inner turmoil, Ethan found himself utterly captivated. Her charm was undeniable, and her confidence left no room for his defenses. By the time they returned to her place, any resistance Ethan had been holding onto had vanished. When Samantha stood before him, undressed, she was everything he'd ever imagined and more. For a moment, he hesitated, overcome by awe and uncertainty. But as she pulled him closer, he let go of his doubts, pouring everything he had into the moment. This, he knew, was his chance to prove himself. Later, as they lay facing each other in the quiet of her bedroom, Samantha grinned at him, her expression a mix of satisfaction and mischief. "I made a huge mistake all those years ago," she murmured. "You're incredible, Ethan. If only I'd realized sooner. We've wasted so much time." Her words stayed with him, a strange mix of praise and regret. Though she had always seemed out of his league in terms of looks, Samantha was now acknowledging his other qualities. His reliability, ambition, and, to her apparent surprise, his unexpected skill in bed. For the first time in years, Ethan felt as though he had the upper hand, though he couldn't shake the sense that this dynamic was fleeting. As their relationship deepened in the following months, Ethan began to fall for Samantha in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her beauty, of course, had always been undeniable, but he started to see other sides of her that drew him in further. After some time, he decided to buy an engagement ring. Before proposing, however, he felt the need to have an honest conversation about their future. One evening, seated at their favorite restaurant, he placed a small black box on the table between them. Samantha's eyes flicked to it, curiosity flickering across her face. "The past is behind us," Ethan began. "But I need clarity about what comes next. From now on, I want full exclusivity, no exceptions. If you can't commit to that, I need to know now." Samantha met his gaze, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she said, "I would never betray my husband. Never." Her words seemed resolute as Ethan opened the box, revealing the ring. At the time, her declaration reassured him, though now he wondered if her definition of betrayal had been different from his. Perhaps she believed her actions weren't betrayal if she was upfront about them. Ethan knew Samantha had countless opportunities to stray over the years. With her looks, it was inevitable. But as far as he knew, she had remained loyal for 23 years. To him, she wasn't just beautiful. She was extraordinary, a woman who turned heads wherever she went. He often joked, "When God made my wife, he was showing off." In the early years of their marriage, Samantha had shared every instance of unwanted attention she received, striving for transparency. But after a while, Ethan assured her that he trusted her completely and didn't need constant updates. He only asked her to tell him if someone persisted after being rejected, so he could step in if necessary. While women rarely pursued Ethan, he wore his wedding ring like a shield. In any social situation, he made a point of mentioning his wife and children early in the conversation, effectively shutting down any potential interest. This behavior sometimes made him more appealing to others, though Samantha remained unaware of how often he was approached. For 22 years, their marriage seemed like a fairy tale. But then Rosa Romano joined Samantha's workplace. Rosa, a curvy brunette with striking dark eyes, had a magnetic presence often compared to a Bob Seger song. Despite her potential at superior solutions, she chose to remain Samantha's assistant. At 42, Rosa had been married for 15 years, but openly shared her dissatisfaction with marriage, regaling coworkers with vivid tales of her extramarital escapades. During one coffee break, Rosa turned to Samantha with a knowing smile. "So, you've never strayed? You seem so rock solid, but I can't believe you don't crave something different." Samantha hesitated, the question catching her off guard. "I won't say I'm not curious," she admitted cautiously, "but I'd never betray Ethan." Her response was firm, but Samantha couldn't deny the changes she had started to notice. At bars and restaurants, younger women were beginning to draw the attention she used to command effortlessly. It wasn't as if she was ignored, far from it, but the shift was undeniable. It stirred doubts she hadn't felt in years, planting a seed of insecurity she couldn't quite shake. "What if we played the what-if game?" Rosa asked, her tone playful but probing. "What if your husband gave you the green light? What then?" Samantha's expression flickered with a mix of surprise and intrigue as Grace's words sank in. The idea of asking Ethan for permission had never crossed her mind before. "I suppose if I had his blessing, it would change everything," Samantha admitted, a mischievous grin forming on her lips. Grace leaned in, her tone both encouraging and provocative. "Ever thought about asking for it? Everything worth having is worth asking for." Samantha hesitated, the grin fading as uncertainty crept into her features. "He'll never agree," she said firmly, though her voice wavered with doubt. "Then take what you want," Grace suggested with a shrug. Tell him. If he loves you as much as you say he does, he'll come around. Convince him you're doing this together, that it's just a phase, and you'll come back stronger than ever. It's not about love. You only love him. But you deserve to explore. The sound of a car engine outside pulled Ethan from his thoughts. He glanced at the clock. It was past 3 a.m. Samantha's night out had lasted far longer than expected. As she entered the house, her disheveled appearance caught his attention. Her makeup was smudged, her hair unkempt, and her dress rumpled. Yet her smug expression grated on him the most. "Great night, huh?" he said dryly, raising a glass of Woodford Reserve. Samantha shot him a dismissive look. "I could say the same to you. You didn't have to wait up." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And you didn't have to go," he replied coldly. "I hope it was worth it." Ignoring his remark, Samantha muttered, "I'm going to bed." She climbed the stairs without another word. Ethan poured himself another drink, turned back to the muted television, and sank into his recliner. Sleep never came. The next morning, Ethan was in the kitchen by 9, preparing breakfast while the shower ran upstairs. Normally, Samantha would appear in a robe with her hair wrapped in a towel. But today, she descended fully dressed, her makeup flawless and her demeanor sharp. "Did you leave me anything to eat?" she asked casually, as if nothing had happened. "I made coffee, but you can cook for yourself," Ethan replied, his voice firm. "And since you're dressed for the occasion, it's a good time to talk." Samantha froze for a moment, surprised by his calm tone. She had expected an outburst. Anger was easier to manipulate. But this measured, composed version of Ethan unnerved her. "Don't you want to hear about last night?" she asked tentatively. "No," Ethan said bluntly. "What I want to know is your vision for our marriage moving forward." Samantha hesitated, then straightened her posture. "As I mentioned, I plan to explore other men for a while," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "It's not about love, it's just about excitement and variety. I've been loyal to you for 23 years, Ethan, and you're incredible in bed. But I crave something new, something different, while I'm still desirable. When this phase is over, I'll be yours exclusively again, and we'll ride off into the sunset together." Ethan listened quietly, buttering toast with mechanical precision. Her detached tone, as if discussing the weather, made his stomach churn. "So you're asking for an open marriage," he said, his voice strained. "But just for you. Or does this extend to me as well?" Samantha laughed, the idea of reserved Ethan with another woman striking her as absurd. "If that's what it takes for you to agree," she said with a smirk. "Sure, it can go both ways. Though we both know you'd never act on it." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his face unreadable. "Would you like me to ask out Grace?" "She seems willing enough," Samantha teased, testing his reaction. "I'm sure she'd be happy to help." Ethan frowned. The younger, lustful version of himself might have jumped at the idea, but the man he was now recoiled at the thought. "I'll pass," he said firmly. "I won't stoop to your level." Samantha's smile twisted into a scowl. "I am not a cheater," she snapped. "Well, if you say so," Ethan replied, his tone sharper than she expected. "But I don't agree to this, and I never will." "You'll come around," Samantha said, her voice icy. "Because I'm doing it regardless." On Monday morning, Grace entered Samantha's office and immediately noticed her sour mood. "To hell with that close-minded fool," Samantha muttered as she closed the door behind her. Grace frowned. "What happened? Don't tell me he turned down a date with me." Samantha huffed. "He did. I thought he'd at least consider it. But no. He's as stubborn as ever." Grace smirked, gesturing to her figure. "How could anyone resist this?" she joked. "Anyway, how was your night? Did he spoil it, or was it worth it?" "Oh, Liam was amazing," Samantha gushed, her face lighting up. "It's been so long since I've been with another man, and I definitely appreciated the change. Who do you think I should try next?" They both laughed, sharing the camaraderie of Samantha's newfound freedom. But deep down, Samantha knew she wasn't entirely at ease. She couldn't ignore the tension with Ethan or the lingering threat of divorce. Still, she clung to the fact that he hadn't filed any papers yet. For his part, Ethan wasn't rushing toward divorce either. Though his anger simmered just beneath the surface, He held on to the faint hope that Samantha would come to her senses. He believed their marriage could recover if she abandoned her reckless pursuit of excitement. That hope grew slightly stronger the following week when Samantha skipped a planned date. For the first time in days, Ethan felt a glimmer of optimism. Perhaps there was still a chance to salvage what remained of their 23 years together. Despite the continued distance between them, both emotionally and physically, Ethan held onto a faint glimmer of hope. Samantha's skip date the previous week had fueled his optimism, but it didn't last. By Friday evening, she was once again impeccably dressed, clearly ready for another outing. "Seriously? You're doing this again?" Ethan asked sharply, his tone a mix of anger and exhaustion. "Is it the same guy, or do you have someone else lined up this time?" Samantha sighed dramatically, as if his objection was unreasonable. "Ethan, haven't you been listening? This isn't about you. It's about me. I need to fulfill my desires while I still can. It's not that I want you less. I just crave more variety. You get it, don't you?" Her voice was tinged with impatience, as though explaining something obvious. "I'm constantly pursued, Ethan. I just want to indulge for a while, but I'll always come back to you." Ethan shook his head, his voice firm. "What if I don't want you to come back? I won't share you, Samantha. I can't just stand by while you indulge. This isn't who I am. One date, maybe I could have handled, but twice? It's utter disrespect, a betrayal. Staying out all night, partying, and coming home like a stranger? I can't do this anymore. I'm not here to be your safety net." Samantha smirked, wiggling her fingers in mockery. "Wah, wah, wah. You don't want to lose me, Ethan. It doesn't have to be all or nothing." What Samantha didn't know was that Ethan had already taken steps to protect himself. The previous week, after her first night out, he'd contacted his lawyer to prepare divorce papers, documents he hoped he wouldn't need. But he realized now that Samantha had no intention of stopping, and his patience was wearing thin. That weekend, Ethan decided to call their daughters, Ella, 21, and Lila, 19, to share the difficult news. Neither seemed shocked by the revelation, though Ella's subdued responses hinted she might have known more than she let on. "You knew this was happening and didn't tell me?" Ethan demanded over the phone, his frustration boiling over. "You didn't think I deserved to know?" "Daddy, I was stuck in the middle," Ella replied defensively. "No matter what I did, one of you would have been angry with me. And it's her body, Dad. I didn't think I had the right to tell you what she was doing." "Don't give me that her body nonsense," Ethan snapped. "I'm not trying to control her, but marriage is about commitment, respect for each other. You think vows mean nothing?" Ella's voice softened. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I didn't know what to do." The conversation ended on a strained note, leaving Ethan feeling more isolated than ever. That night, Samantha came home earlier than usual, just after 2 a.m., but her disheveled appearance told the story. Marcus Romano, Grace's husband, had been her partner for the evening. Marcus was a large, powerful man, and their night together had left Samantha physically drained. As she climbed the stairs, she thought about seeing him again sometime soon. For her, it had been another thrilling evening, but her triumph was short-lived. On Monday morning, Samantha was blindsided at work when she received the divorce papers Ethan had filed. Shocked and embarrassed, she fled to the restroom, tears streaming down her face. Grace followed shortly after, finding her friend in disarray. "You should have expected this," Grace said bluntly. "Men are so childish, always looking for revenge. He's trying to hurt you back. Give him a week to stew, and he'll come crawling back." Samantha tried to collect herself, dabbing at her makeup. "He's being so dramatic," she muttered. "I don't want a divorce. I just want some freedom. Is that too much to ask?" After returning to her desk, Samantha called Ethan. When he answered, her voice was trembling with anger and desperation. "How could you do this to me, Ethan? At work, in front of everyone? I know you're hurting, but I deserve better than this." Ethan's response was calm but cutting. "You decided on your own to open our marriage without considering what I wanted. If I'm not enough for you, you could have told me before running off to bed hop. I loved you, Samantha, but every time you're with someone else, that love fades. My love isn't bottomless, no matter what you think." Samantha began to sob. I still love you, Ethan. I don't want this. Please, don't do this to us. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. Despite her declarations, she refused to change her behavior, and Ethan couldn't bring himself to believe her promises anymore. Samantha's lawyer arranged for marriage counseling in an effort to delay the divorce proceedings. Reluctantly, Ethan agreed to attend. When they arrived at the counselor's office, they were surprised to meet Charlotte Rivers, a no-nonsense consultant with a reputation for cutting through emotional clutter. Let's get straight to the point, Charlotte began. Mrs. Hayes, is it true you told your husband about your intention to date other men? Samantha shifted uncomfortably in her seat, struggling to maintain her composure. Yes, she admitted quietly. I told him. That's what I want. But it doesn't mean I love him any less. Charlotte shook her head. If you thought this behavior would fly with me, you're delusional. You should be ashamed of yourself, but evidently, you have no shame. This session is over. I'll inform the judge and put an end to this charade. Samantha stammered, trying to salvage the moment. But enough, Charlotte interrupted firmly. Your husband deserves better. Over the next month, Samantha made repeated attempts to contact Ethan. She called and texted him daily, but he ignored her messages. Eventually, she enlisted their daughters to plead her case. Dad, you still love her. If she stopped seeing other men, would you take her back? Lila asked one afternoon. Ethan's voice trembled. She's still doing it, even after I filed for divorce? The silence on the other end was enough of an answer. After that, Lila stopped trying to mediate, realizing her father's decision was final. Word of the divorce spread quickly, especially among their social circle. Ethan was surprised by the sudden attention he received, particularly from single women. While some genuinely offered condolences, others, like Nina Myung, a longtime friend of Samantha's, seemed to flirt openly. I wouldn't normally pursue a friend's husband, Nina said during one conversation, her tone anything but subtle. Ethan, however, remained guarded. His trust had been broken too deeply to entertain the idea of moving on so soon. That's just wrong, Nina assured him with a teasing smile. But now that you're single, things are different. I'm interested in you. Surprised? Ethan hesitated, genuinely taken aback by her candid admission. I'm flattered, Nina, but I'm not officially single yet. We won't start anything until after the divorce is finalized. I might be old-fashioned, but I won't cheat, he said firmly. You're such a Boy Scout, Ethan. That's one of the things I admire about you, Nina said, her voice softening. Can I at least get on your calendar once you're free? Set me up for a date? Ethan chuckled, relaxing slightly. Of course, but I don't want to disrupt your friendship with Samantha. You've been friends for years. Nina shrugged. I appreciate your consideration, but I'm not about to let an opportunity pass just because it's unconventional. Besides, Samantha made her choices. Maybe I'll give you a call when I'm officially off the leash, Ethan joked, though the idea felt surreal. Nina was an attractive woman, petite and fit, with long black hair that cascaded down her back, but he never imagined she'd be interested in him. Yet, her directness was oddly refreshing. True to his word, Ethan contacted Nina the day his divorce was finalized. That Saturday, they went out for dinner and spent the evening at a cozy jazz club. As they chatted, Nina noticed his discomfort and smiled warmly. You seem a little uneasy, she said gently. I feel like a clueless teenager, Ethan admitted. It's been over 26 years since I went on a date with anyone other than Samantha. Nina grinned. Don't tell me the condom in your wallet is the same one from before Samantha? Ethan laughed, shaking his head. Should I have brought one? Damn, I didn't even think about it. Guess I'm really out of practice. You'll catch on, Nina reassured him. At the end of the night, she kissed him gently, leaving him feeling content and hopeful. Ethan promised to call her again, and for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of excitement about the future. Removing his wedding ring on the day his divorce was finalized didn't seem significant to Ethan, but apparently, it was a signal to others. By the following week, several female co-workers had noticed its absence, and their behavior subtly changed. Flirtatious comments and lingering glances became more frequent. During lunch with his best friend Robert, Ethan confided his bewilderment. Why does it feel like the women in this office suddenly became stunning overnight? How did I not notice before? Robert smirked. Because you, my friend, were the poster boy for a henpecked husband. You were so wrapped up in Samantha that you didn't see other women at all. Sure, she's beautiful, but she controlled you. And maybe that's part of why she started pushing boundaries. You never pushed back. Ethan frowned, mulling over Robert's words. It wasn't easy to admit, but there was truth to his friend's observations. In the first month after the divorce, Ethan went on 4 dates, 2 of them with Nina. Though he hadn't yet slept with anyone, he wasn't in a rush. By the second month, however, things had progressed, and he ended up in bed with 2 women. It felt surreal, venturing into a dating world that had changed drastically since his youth. Meanwhile, Samantha maintained her narrative with their daughters, boasting about her ability to attract men effortlessly while claiming Ethan was struggling to find companionship. Ella and Lila, who still spoke to Samantha more frequently than Ethan, began to feel sorry for him. They decided to surprise him with breakfast one Saturday morning, about 2 months after the divorce. Ethan wasn't thrilled about being awakened at 8:36 a.m., especially after a late night entertaining Sonia, a 25-year-old who had asked him to be her date for a friend's wedding. The evening had gone so well that they continued it back at his apartment. Sonia was still asleep when Ethan, groggy and clad in a robe, opened the door to his smiling daughters. "Good morning, Dad," Ella chirped. "Can your 2 favorite daughters join you for breakfast?" Ethan blinked in surprise, but stepped aside to let them in. "What's going on?" he asked as they unpacked bags of bagels and coffee. They were halfway through breakfast when Sonia emerged from the bedroom, wearing one of Ethan's shirts, partially unbuttoned and likely nothing else. She walked into the kitchen, stretching languidly. "Sorry, baby. Didn't know we had guests," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. Ethan's daughters froze, their cheeks turning crimson. Sonia, these are my daughters, Ella and Lila," Ethan said awkwardly. Sonia didn't miss a beat, giggling as she gestured to the table. "Bagels and salmon? Nice spread," she quipped, her playful demeanor causing Ella to glare and Lila to squirm. Despite the awkward start, the 4 managed to chat casually until Ella brought up Samantha. "Dad, we were wondering, do you miss Mom?" she asked hesitantly. "She says she misses you." Ethan's expression darkened. "I'm not sure how much she misses me. From what I've heard, she's been busy." Ella frowned. "She's not promiscuous, Dad." "Really?" Ethan challenged. "How many guys has she been with since we split?" "2 that I know of before I even moved out. You tell me how many more there've been." The girls exchanged uneasy glances, and Sonia, ever unfiltered, piped up. "Wow, let's do the math. 2 a month for 10 months? That's 20 guys. 3 a month? 30. That's impressive." If looks could kill, Ella and Lila would have buried Sonia on the spot. Sonia, aware of their animosity, shrugged innocently. "Hey, I'm not judging. I just think it's funny how some people talk about love and loyalty but can't keep their legs closed." Sonia's bluntness left Ethan struggling to stifle a laugh, but his daughters weren't amused. The breakfast ended on a tense note, and as Ella and Lila left, Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of their disapproval. Still, he was relieved that his life, though messy, was finally moving forward. "Hey, don't blame me if a woman can't keep her legs shut," Sonia quipped, flashing a mischievous grin. Children, let's not ruin my good weekend," Ethan interjected, raising his hands as though breaking up a schoolyard squabble. "Sorry," all 3 women mumbled simultaneously, though Sonia's smirk lingered. Ella leaned towards Sonia, her tone curious but skeptical. "So, are you 2 an item? You don't look much older than me." Sonia shrugged and smiled. "Your dad mentioned we're the same age, but don't worry, I won't ever be your stepmother. We're just friends. He was my date at the wedding reception last night, and for the record, he's kind of a hottie. Did I mention he's a great guy?" "Well, we can agree he's a great guy," Ella replied, her words laced with sarcasm. "Though we also know he can be a bit of an idiot sometimes." She gave her father a teasing glance before adding, "And yeah, he's kind of attractive, for someone old enough to be your dad." Now it was Sonia's turn to blush, her cheeks flushing pink. Ethan wasn't immune either, the unexpected compliment catching him off guard. "Hey babe, remember we've got lunch with the newlyweds' families at noon," Sonia reminded, cutting through the awkwardness. "I need to shower and grab some clothes from my place first." As Sonia left, Ella and Lila exchanged weary glances, rolling their eyes at their father's apparent ease in this new phase of his life. "Mom, she's my age," Ella informed Samantha a few weeks later during lunch. "And it doesn't seem like a one-time thing. They really enjoy each other's company. I don't think Dad's coming back to you anytime soon." Samantha stiffened, her fork halting midway to her mouth. "No, you just caught him on a good day. He probably helped a friend's kid and got lucky." Ella shook her head, undeterred. "No, Mom. Sonia isn't just some random fling. And somewhere along the line, you decided it was all about you. Was it worth it?" For the first time, Samantha's confident facade cracked. She couldn't admit aloud that the lovemaking with her new partners was uninspiring, or that she never imagined Ethan thriving post-divorce. She had assumed he'd spend his days pining for her, consumed by regret. Instead, he had become an unexpected catch, handsome, intelligent, and successful, attracting women across all age groups. Samantha seethed internally when she learned he had dated her old friend Nina. Though she initially assumed it was a pity date, the realization of their connection stung. When she confronted Nina, her voice rose with frustration. "I thought we were friends, Nina. You're supposed to have my back. Women need to support each other." "Samantha, he didn't hurt you. You threw him away," Nina retorted. "He's a good guy. Amazing, actually. Everything I want in a man. Why shouldn't I date him? Women are lining up for him, Samantha. He's prime dating material, a true gentleman. Plus, he's great in bed. I'd go out with him anytime he asks." Samantha gaped, stunned into silence. Nina's words hit harder than expected, forcing her to confront the magnitude of her mistake. She returned home to her empty house, haunted by her choices and dreading another lonely night. Ethan, meanwhile, found his life unexpectedly fulfilling. Though he hadn't envisioned a post-divorce existence full of dates and variety, he embraced the change. Work remained rewarding, and his social life flourished. He enjoyed the company of women of different ages, many of whom shared an unexpected chemistry with him. While he wasn't actively seeking a long-term relationship, he relished the freedom and spontaneity. One of the women who caught his attention was Violet Harper, a 60-year-old with silver hair streaked with purple and a youthful energy that belied her age. Violet, a longtime colleague of Samantha's, had known Ethan casually through company events but had always admired his charisma and charm. Widowed for 5 years, she decided to ask for his number after a chance encounter at a fundraiser. Ethan remembered Violet vividly. She had an elegant yet approachable demeanor, and her captivating gray eyes left a lasting impression. When she suggested dinner, he readily agreed. Their first date was a memorable one, an upscale restaurant followed by a concert at the Philharmonic, where Violet provided tickets. The night ended with a kiss on her doorstep, leaving both eager for more. Their second date was a Saturday hike. Violet, an avid hiker and climber, reveled in the outdoors, but Ethan quickly discovered his limits. "I thought I was in good shape," he admitted, pausing to catch his breath. Violet laughed, her ponytail bobbing beneath her cub's cap as she waited for him to recover. Their day together showcased Violet's vitality and reminded Ethan of how much he enjoyed her company. The date ended in her living room, where a passionate kiss on the couch led to tender lovemaking on her plush rug. Ethan found her blend of sophistication and girl-next-door charm irresistible, and he suggested a weekend trip to Chicago for their next outing. Violet eagerly agreed, and they spent their third date exploring the Windy City. Seated in the left field bleachers at Wrigley Field, Violet turned heads in her snug Cubs t-shirt and Levi's that hugged her figure like they were made for her. At 60, she exuded confidence and beauty, drawing admiring glances from fans nearby. Ethan, too, couldn't help but admire her. As they shared a bag of peanuts and cheered for the Cubs, he felt a rare sense of contentment. Later, they strolled along Navy Pier, their conversation flowing effortlessly as they took in the sights. The evening ended in their hotel suite, where laughter and kisses gave way to an intimate connection that left them both smiling long into the night. For Ethan, the experience was a revelation. Life after Samantha was far more vibrant and fulfilling than he ever imagined. While he missed the stability of marriage at times, he realized there was more to life than being tied to someone who had taken him for granted. Violet, with her wit, charm, and adventurous spirit, was a reminder that love and companionship could come in unexpected forms and at any stage of life. On their first outing, Violet mentioned to Ethan that she had no intention of informing Samantha about their relationship. "I'm not one to hide anything if asked," she said, "but I see no need to broadcast it either." Violet also noted that Samantha had told their mutual colleagues that her divorce was due to irreconcilable differences. Ethan chuckled bitterly. "She can spin it however she wants. I've been honest with people. She cheated with at least 2 men. I didn't see the need to share the finer details." In the 2 years since his divorce, Ethan had cultivated several meaningful relationships and enjoyed what he privately considered an exceptional love life. Many of his partners admired him and hoped for something more long-term. While Ethan wasn't rushing into another marriage, he hadn't ruled out the possibility of rebuilding trust with the right person. Samantha, on the other hand, remained focused solely on physical gratification, uninterested in the emotional connections her companions often sought. This stark contrast between the ex-partners posed an unexpected challenge during Ella's wedding preparations. While Ethan funded the lavish event with enthusiasm, Samantha floated a suggestion to Ella that both parents attend unaccompanied to ease tension. Ella, aiming to keep the peace, relayed the idea to her father over lunch. "Is this your brilliant idea, or your mother's?" Ethan asked, his tone clipped. "Mom's," Ella admitted hesitantly. "Well, you can tell her it's not happening," Ethan said firmly. "I'm bringing a date. I'm footing the bill for this wedding, and I intend to enjoy the day with someone I care about. I've even taken dance lessons specifically for this. Your mom doesn't get to dictate how I celebrate my daughter's big day." Ella sighed but nodded. "Understood, Dad. But could you at least bring someone closer to your age?" Ethan smiled warmly. "I can accommodate that. But do watch Sonia and me dance sometime. It's quite the show," he joked, earning an eye roll from his daughter. True to his word, Ethan brought Nina Mayong to the wedding, despite a minor disagreement over the sea green dress he bought her. Insisting she have something new for the occasion, Nina was the perfect companion. The two arrived arm in arm, turning heads as they entered the venue. Walking Ella down the aisle was a bittersweet moment for Ethan. It was everything other fathers had described: emotional, joyful, and humbling. While the day was undoubtedly special, it wasn't without its hiccups. Samantha arrived with a date of her own, a man whose leering gaze and drunken antics quickly made him unwelcome. At Ella's request, Samantha escorted him out, visibly mortified by his behavior. The drama didn't end there. During a brief encounter in the restroom, Samantha confronted Nina, accusing her of stealing her man. Nina, ever composed, calmly replied, "Samantha, Ethan divorced you before we started dating. I didn't steal anyone. You let him go." Samantha stood speechless, unable to refute Nina's point. She reluctantly allowed her to leave without further conflict, unwilling to ruin the family's special day. For Ethan, the reception was a joyous celebration. He, Nina, and his children danced late into the night, creating memories he would treasure forever. A few months after the wedding, Lila visited Ethan one evening, her demeanor unusually tense. Ethan watched her for a moment before speaking. "Okay, Mitch, what's on your mind? You've been on edge all night." Lila flushed, struggling to find her words. Dad, you know how Mom sometimes talks about reconciling with you? About winning you back when she's done seeing other guys?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "She can stop dreaming. That's not happening." "Why?" "Well, the thing is, she has an STD, Dad," Lila blurted out, her voice barely above a whisper. "I overheard her talking with her friends. She said she has syphilis." Ethan's face darkened, a mix of surprise and sadness crossing his features. "I guess you're telling me because you're worried about me," he said after a long pause. "For the record, I haven't been with your mother since before the divorce. But thank you for letting me know." "I didn't know what to do," Lila admitted, her voice trembling. "I just didn't want you to get hurt." "You did the right thing," Ethan assured her. And it's standard protocol for her to inform anyone she's involved with, so they can get tested. I just wish, well, it doesn't matter now. A few days later, Ethan received an unsettling call from Violet. Her voice carried a hint of worry. Ethan, I need to ask, have you been with Samantha since the divorce? No, Violet, Ethan said firmly. Not once. Believe me, I understand your concern, but I can't control what she does. I haven't seen her as anything but the mother of my children for years. I believe you, Violet said softly. But, Ethan, she's becoming a scandal. People are talking about her more than ever, and not in a good way. It's like she's letting her guard down completely. Ethan sighed, his frustration evident. I've heard the same. Unfortunately, it seems like the longer she stays single, the worse her behavior gets. Samantha's increasingly reckless actions and the gossip surrounding her private life didn't stop her from attempting to leverage her diagnosis to reconnect with Ethan. She reached out under the guise of reconciliation, framing her situation as a reason for him to be there for her. Ethan, however, saw through her manipulations. While he remained cordial for the sake of their daughters, he made it clear that there was no path back to the life they once shared. For him, the future was about moving forward, not revisiting a painful past. 6 months after being declared cured, Samantha began plotting her reunion with Ethan. She resented him for initiating the divorce, something she hadn't anticipated. In her mind, Ethan would never leave someone of her caliber. Her plan might have succeeded if other women hadn't taken an interest in him. Confident in her allure, Samantha couldn't fathom why Ethan would be drawn to others. I know he's great, but can't these women see he's not on my level? She complained to Grace one evening over margaritas. Grace dismissed her concerns. Let them have their fun. Ethan is too simple for women like that. He'll come crawling back. But Samantha wasn't so sure anymore. While she expected Ethan to sulk in loneliness, the reality was the opposite. His post-divorce dating life rivaled hers, but with one glaring difference: his relationships seemed genuine. Samantha's encounters, by contrast, were fleeting and devoid of emotional connection. Her confidence began to waver. Maybe it was time to try to win him back. Ethan was caught off guard when he answered the phone and heard Samantha's voice. It had been nearly 2 years since they last spoke. Hi, Trev, she cooed. I think it's time for us to talk. Ethan sighed. I thought we agreed not to talk until Mikhail got married. Has something changed? Still the same, Ethan. Still denying that you love me, Samantha replied sweetly. But deep down, you know you want me back. Still the same, Samantha, Ethan shot back. You still think everything revolves around you. She hesitated but pressed on. Look, Ethan, I know you're angry, but I do love you. Maybe I should have just cheated and kept it quiet. Would that have been better? Ethan's voice hardened. It was still cheating, Samantha. Telling me beforehand didn't make it right. You did it because you thought I'd never leave. Did you really think so little of me? Samantha faltered, and Ethan continued. You always thought you were a 10, hell, a 12. But these past few years have shown me I'm more than just the husband of a beautiful woman. Other women value me, and they're willing to give me the love and respect you never did. Ethan, please. Why would I want to go back to being with someone selfish who never truly loved me? Loved, Samantha. Past tense. With that, he hung up and turned to the woman beside him. Ready for round 2? He asked Sonia with a grin. Ethan's life continued to flourish. Sonia eventually married someone else, but Nina and Violet remained constants in his life. Though Ethan loved both women in different ways, he never remarried, and both accepted the arrangement. Their mutual care brought stability and joy, even if it wasn't traditional. Years later, both Nina and Violet attended Lila's wedding, which Samantha attended without a date. When she complained to Lila about their presence, her daughter shut her down. After me, Ella, and her family, Nina and Violet are the 2 closest people in Dad's life, Lila said. They love him for who he is and prioritize him over their own interests, which is more than I can say for some people. You let him go, Mom. Why? Because you thought he'd never leave? You were wrong. Samantha couldn't respond, stung by her daughter's words. Deep down, she knew they were true. Samantha's life wasn't lonely, far from it. Her beauty still drew men effortlessly, and she had no shortage of short-term relationships. Yet none of them lasted, and she often found herself reflecting on the life she'd given up. She had gambled on Ethan staying, certain he wouldn't find better, and she had lost. Ethan, meanwhile, found peace in his new life. Though his first choice had been to grow old with Samantha, he had no regrets about leaving an unacceptable situation. His relationships with Nina and Violet brought him joy and companionship, and his daughters remained a central part of his life. For Samantha, the truth was clear. Her arrogance had cost her everything. The life she thought she controlled had unraveled, leaving her to wonder how she had misjudged it all so completely.